My name is Alan Reifman, and I'm a professor of human development and family studies. My main area of research is what's called emerging adulthood, which is the transition from adolescence to full adulthood. 40 or 50 years ago, there really was not much of a delay between adolescence and adulthood, so that people right after high school or right after college would get married, start families, and move into what could be a long career in one job. But over time, there's begun to be more of a delay between when people finish school and when they get married and have children. Lately, the statistics show that many Americans' first age at marriage is around their late 20s or early 30s. And so the question is, what are young people doing with their 20s, whereas before they go immediately into the traditional adult roles, and now they're taking 10 years to get married and find their career and start families. Many young people move back home after college and they live with their parents, which is a phenomenon known as boomerang kids, that the children leave the home and then they come back into the home. So in short, I'm studying all the things that young people do during their 20s and early 30s as they make the transition to full adulthood. I've done some projects lately about romantic relationships during the emerging adult years, the dating and relationship formation and transition to parenthood. Earlier in my career, I did a lot of research on drinking, heavy alcohol consumption in college and during the 20s, and I still do a little bit about that, but I'm generally interested in all areas of emerging adulthood, whether it's education, transition to a career, dating, romance, drinking, transition to parenthood, and so forth. I teach a variety of undergraduate and graduate classes. Given my interest in emerging adulthood, I teach one undergraduate course called Development in Young Adulthood. I also teach a class offered both at the undergraduate and graduate level called Family Law and Public Policy, which attempts to merge legal and governmental policies with family studies. So, for example, of course, we have the issue of same-sex marriage, which has been in the news a lot, about the laws about who is allowed to get married, who is not allowed to get married. But there are a lot of other marital laws that are pretty obscure, so that, for example, different states may have a different minimum age at which you could get married. And it might be 18, but some states might allow young people to get married as young as maybe 15 or 16 with parents' permission. Also, divorce laws, a minimum waiting period before a couple can get divorced. There are all kinds of laws about adoption and laws affecting the elderly, Social Security and Medicare. So that's family law and public policy, another course I teach. And then I also teach a lot of courses, undergrad and grad, in research methodology and statistics. So how do you do a proper survey? How do you recruit participants so that your results can be said to be representative of the United States or the state of Texas? How do you design a questionnaire? How do you conduct a survey? And then statistical analysis. How do you analyze your data once you have your data? Like if you want to study whether children watching violent television shows makes the children more aggressive, how would you design a research study and how would you analyze the statistics for that? I involve students in both teaching and research, so that typically for the teaching, I would have a graduate teaching assistant who would do some of the grading, possibly give guest lectures. The teaching assistant, as well as myself, we would have office hours to meet with students to discuss the material. So the traditional teaching assistant role. And then with research, student assistants can take on a variety of roles, such as library research, trying to find articles that will help us develop our newest studies, or more advanced graduate students might help with statistical analysis. The students can assist really in a variety of ways. My training is in psychology. I received a bachelor's degree in psychology 30 years ago, 1984, from the University of California, Los Angeles, or UCLA. And then I went to graduate school at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and got a Ph.D. in social psychology in 1989. And then I had a variety of research positions, one at the University of Houston, and then one in Buffalo, New York, at a place called the Research Institute on Addictions. And then I came to Texas Tech as a faculty member in Human Development and Family Studies in the fall of 1997. And so Human Development and Family Studies has a lot of similarity with psychology, studying the individual, although Human Development and Family Studies focuses more on the family and other contexts, the surroundings, the environment of human development. And so I transitioned a little bit myself from my social psychology background to Human Development and Family Studies. And so I've now been at Texas Tech a while. Anyway, and I enjoy expanding my knowledge in different areas, but also trying to stick to the core concepts I learned within social psychology. Prospective graduate students that I'm always working on some kind of research. I try to be very active. I head up some projects myself. I collaborate with other faculty members, but we're always trying to publish articles or apply for federal research grants, so that there'll always be something to do. There'll never be a dull moment. And I try to be flexible so that if a new student comes in, we would try to find some area of common interest, so that student might have some interest in emerging adulthood and the transition to adulthood. It might not be something I myself have studied extensively. I had a student a few years ago who was interested in college students who spend a lot of time in paid employment and balancing the student role with the worker role. And that's not something I had done previously, but I try to be flexible, and I try to work something out with the student where, as long as their idea has a little bit of overlap with my interests, I'll try to show some openness to studying their area, and we come to some blend of interests, and we do a research project. So if you have any interest at all in the transition to adulthood, or adolescence, the 20s, the early 30s, boomerang kids, anything like that, come talk with me, and there's a good chance we'd be able to work out a project to do.